and Joanna Walney on the cello. Please show your appreciation for their efforts this evening. The Zimmer Quartet is available to perform at events for members of Convocation. Should you wish to contact them, full details are available on the flyer which have been placed on each seat, and business cards are available on the reception desk outside. I'm sure you'll agree that that'd be a marvellous accompaniment to any event or celebration, birthday or wedding. So please contact them if you need musical interludes at any of your family events. It's now my pleasure to welcome you to the Spring Ordinary Meeting for 2016. I'd particularly like to welcome the Chancellor, Dr. Micah Chaney, AO, former Chancellor, Professor Alex Cohen, our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Paul Johnson, the Guild President, Miss Maddie Mulholland, members of Senate, Dr. Joan Pope, the Deputy Warden of Convocation, our guest speaker, Senior Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dawn Freshwater, Professor Kent Anderson, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Community and Engagement, members of the UWA Council of Convocation, and all lifetime members of Convocation, including their guests and friends. Welcome, one and all. It is the custom of the university to recognise that our activities take place on Noongar land, and that the Noongar people are the spiritual and cultural custodians of this land, where they continue to practice their values, beliefs and languages. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. So I now declare the meeting open at 6:32, and note that I have apologies from former Chancellor Dr. Ken Michael AC and over 700 other members of Convocation who are unable to be with us this evening. If anyone else wishes to convey additional apologies, could I ask that they please contact Juanita Perez, the Convocation Officer, and she will record the details. I will now commence the meeting by moving to item 1 on the meeting agenda, the minutes of the first ordinary meeting held on Wednesday, the 1st of April this year, which commence on page 4 of your agenda booklet. Are there any amendments to the minutes that anyone wishes to make? If not, as required under item 2, can I ask someone who attended the first order... Oh, sorry, we do have one. My apologies. The guest speaker and the questions for that have all been recorded on video and are available on the website. As it wasn't part of the formal meeting, they aren't recorded in the formal minutes, but thank you for raising it. No further amendments? If so, as required under item 2, can I ask someone who attended the first ordinary meeting to move acceptance of the minutes?
Warden, I would love to move the April Fool's Day meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Joan Pope. And someone to second that motion? Jim Paparo, thank you very much. All those in favour? I think that's carried, thank you. Can I now move to item 3 on the agenda, business arising from the minutes of the last ordinary meeting. Last year, feedback was received from a number of members indicating that they would like to have the opportunity to view the agenda papers prior to the meeting. Because of the cost involved in posting a printed copy to all members, it has been decided to make the agenda papers available online, and a link to this documentation was provided in the email reminder sent out earlier this week. I hope that you found this of benefit, and we will now ensure that these arrangements are in place for all future meetings so that everyone can access the papers prior to the meeting via the Convocation website. At the last ordinary meeting, we also included a one-page questionnaire with the agenda booklet. That survey addressed 3 questions. The first sought your views on the preferred commencement time for the meeting, and 65% of those present at the last meeting favoured a 6 p.m. start. So we'll try and implement this for future meetings. This evening there was a prior booking for this space, which meant it was not available until after 6 p.m, but we can now go forward booking those meetings in the future at that earlier time. The second question asked whether you wish to have a musical interlude prior to the meeting, and 60% favoured having music prior to the commencement of the meeting, and we therefore arranged for the Zimmer Quartet to be present this evening. The third question sought your interest in Convocation establishing clubs for members interested in cultural and social pursuits. This resulted in a very positive feedback for quite a range of clubs and interests: choir, jazz, chess, fitness, yoga, food, wine appreciation, book clubs, tennis, the list went on. As a result, Convocation Council is now considering how best to establish these clubs for UWA graduates, and we hope to come back to you at future meetings on the arrangements for this. Following the last ordinary meeting, we also received many positive comments regarding the Q&A session that we had at the end of the meeting. Consequently, we've included another Q&A session in the agenda tonight, and therefore, rather than have questions after each speaker, we ask that you hold your questions until all speakers are on stage for the Q&A session. Our next item of business for this evening is item 4, correspondence. While Convocation receives enough correspondence to warrant its own post office, the largest number of letters and emails received since the last meeting have been related to the renewal project for UWA. As a consequence, we have taken the decision and arranged for Professor Dawn Freshwater to address us this evening to outline the background and objectives of the renewal project. While I have replied to all the correspondence I've received, I felt that it was better to have a presentation on this issue so that everyone was informed on the strategy behind this initiative, and we therefore look forward to Dawn's presentation later. We now come to item 5 on the agenda, the Vice-Chancellor's report, which commences on page 21 of the agenda booklet. Given Paul's recent announcement that he will complete his term as Vice-Chancellor at the end of the year, I now wish to invite him to the stage for his last report to an ordinary meeting of Convocation. Please welcome Vice-Chancellor of UWA, Professor Paul Johnson.
Thank you very much, Warren. Let me begin by apologising if I cough and splutter. That is a consequence of this being the wildflower season, and the wattle is blooming, and the hay fever season is therefore also here. So I was coughing and sneezing a little earlier. Let me begin. My report has been circulated. I'd like to begin, though, with some breaking news, which is of particular importance to members of Convocation. Yesterday, in the Legislative Assembly, the University's Legislation Amendment Bill was passed, and it will be debated in the Legislative Council next Thursday. The details of the bill, as passed by the Legislative Assembly yesterday, are pretty much as set out on page 35 of the report you have in front of you. There is one amendment that was accepted on the floor of the Assembly, and that was in relation to the distribution of the student services and amenities fee and the distribution to the Guild, but no other amendments were accepted by the government, and as I say, the bill was passed. That will lead to a reduction in the size of the University Senate from 21 to 17 members. Of those 17 members, 2 of them will be elected by Convocation, 2 by members of staff of the university, and 2 by students. And interestingly, the same provisions will apply to the other 3 public universities. So Curtin, Edith Cowan University, and Murdoch University will also have the same composition of Senate, with 2 elected members of their alumni communities on their senates. So, as I say, that is breaking news. Of course, the bill has not yet been passed. It may not be approved by the Legislative Council in its current form, but it is my expectation that it will be so approved, because it's gone through the Legislative Assembly with some quite extensive debate, but with the support of both the major parties. So I'd expect that to be enacted in due course. That is a significant development, and no doubt the Warden will be saying something about it later. Also, as Warren pointed out, I announced to the university community the week before last, excuse me, that I was not going to accept the offer from Senate to extend my time as Vice-Chancellor. Having been 5 years here, 5 years at La Trobe University, that's 10 years as a Chief Executive. And I've decided for personal reasons that I don't want to do this for any longer. As many of you know, I have 2 quite young children, aged 10 and 13, and I see very little of them. And I would like to see a little bit more of them before they have grown up and departed, flown the family nest. So I will be finishing at the end of the year, but there is an awful lot of work to do before the end of the year, and Dawn will be talking about that work as part of the renewal project. By the end of the year, I should say a project that Dawn has been steering through the university with extraordinary vigour and extraordinary direction. By the end of the year, this university will have been restructured in its academic framework and the faculty structure. It will have been restructured in terms of its administration and its administrative systems. It will be a leaner, more effective, more efficient university, and there have been many changes along the way. Now, some of you would say, is any of this necessary? Why are you doing it? Surely we don't need that because we're a successful university. Absolutely, UWA is a very successful university. But we all know the world around us is changing. And the world for universities, I believe, is going to change very, very rapidly in the future. It will change for universities and it will change for our graduates. Let me give you just a couple of examples of what is changing and how these changes might affect universities. I'm sure many people in the room remember the good old days of vinyl, when you would save up your money, go out and buy the new LP. And they were always quite expensive, but that was a way to stay up to date with music. It's 50 years on since the release of the Beatles' epic LP Revolver, and many people would have gone out and bought that. The world of music moved on to CDs, and people would save up their money to buy the CDs. But today, no one pays any money for any music. Music is free. You can download and listen to any tune you want, any music you want, from Spotify or one of the other streaming services. And that has completely transformed the world of music. No one pays for content anymore, but people will pay $150 to go to a concert. If you think about what we do in universities, and what we've been doing for 100 years, is charging students for content, because you had to go to a university to sit at the feet of the professor and to go into the library to get access to the learned journals. But all that is now available online. So the business model of universities is going to be completely transformed. In the past, we have charged for content, and now content increasingly is being delivered free of charge. So we have to think about what people will pay for. I think they will pay for the experience of learning, but that requires a change in how we operate in universities. And we also have to change what we deliver to our students, because their world, the world of work, is changing fundamentally. One of the biggest changes for one of the big professions, the legal profession, is a change being brought about by Ross. I don't know if any of you have heard of Ross, but you may have heard of IBM Watson. IBM Watson is IBM's artificial intelligence machine, if you like. Ross is the legal services part of IBM Watson. Ross is now being used by some legal services firms in the United States to deliver legal advice. All you have to do to Ross is just speak your questions, your concerns, as you would to a lawyer, and Ross will then interrogate you and hone down your particular issues, and then will give you the best possible legal advice. Ross is now capable of sitting and qualifying through the bar exams in New York State. But there is no human intervention. Ross works through neural network. It's called neural network computing. It's getting computers to think like humans and to interrogate fuzzy data, legal reports, in the same way as humans. And this time last year, I was talking in London to a UWA alumnus, a law graduate, who is working in London and working as a lawyer, but working for an IT company. His particular company was involved in a class action being brought against Volkswagen. You're all familiar with the Volkswagen emissions fraud. And he said his company was dealing with 4 million documents that they had sourced from Volkswagen. In the past, they would have had literally an army of junior lawyers going through those documents, page by page, trying to find the evidence that would be incriminating against Volkswagen. But what he was doing was working with programmers to write the smart algorithms that would do those searches automatically, so that they could do a search of 4 million documents in a matter of weeks, which hitherto would have taken an army of a couple of hundred junior lawyers the best part of a year. So the world is changing. The world for universities is changing. The world for our graduates is changing. And we have to keep up to date. That's why we have been doing a huge amount of change here at UWA. And let me say, the changes that we've been taking through the university over the last 5 years, and particularly over the last 2 years, are actually not to position the university to address these new challenges of the Internet of Things, the availability, the ubiquity of data, the development of artificial intelligence. It's actually just to provide the university the opportunity to respond. I believe that half of Australia's universities won't exist in their current form by within 10 years. I think the changes will be dramatic, they will be profound, there will be winners and losers. I want to make sure that UWA is a winner in these changes. And so what we've been doing is trying to make sure that the university has the financial resources, has the intellectual resources, and is operating in the way so that it can take advantage of the opportunities that will emerge over the next 1, 2, 3 years to work in new ways and to do new things. And to try to make sure, therefore, that the university won't be a victim of circumstance, will not be buffeted by changes in the external environment, but can actually take control of its own future. And I believe the university is very well positioned for that because of some of the changes that we've been taking through over recent years. But I would also say there is no certainty. Change has to continue. If any organisation changes less rapidly than the environment in which it is operating, it will tend to go backwards. And the environment in which universities are operating is changing very rapidly. And we tend to think that that environment is, of course, dominated by government policy. And government policy is certainly important. This university still gets just over 50% of its total revenue from government one way or another. But actually the changes that are coming are being driven by technology. They're being driven by changes in the expectations of today's students and today's employers. They're being driven by market competition. They're being driven by globalization, forces that are impacting on every higher education institution around the world. So I think the future for UWA is bright, but I think the university will have to continue to ensure that it stays a bright future. And whilst we must always treasure the heritage and the traditions of the university, we must be very, very careful to ensure that we don't try to relive our history, because history never repeats. What we have to do is make sure that we live in the university in a way that is appropriate for the life and times of today's students, today's staff, today's researchers, and today's employers. And no doubt we'll have an opportunity to talk some more about that later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Normally, as I indicated earlier, we'd take questions at this point, but we'll save those for the Q&A session later. For those who haven't had the opportunity to read all of the detail contained in the Vice-Chancellor's report, I would certainly recommend it, as it is an excellent synopsis of the issues facing the university. There's also a copy on the Convocation website for those who wish to refer back to it in the future. The Guild President's report is item 6 on our agenda. Her written report is included in the agenda booklet commencing on page 29. Given that Maddie is also completing her term in this role in December, I now invite the Guild President, Ms Maddie Mulholland, to present her final report to Convocation. Please welcome the Guild President, Ms Maddie Mulholland.
Thank you very much, Warren. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to commence with an acknowledgement that we're meeting on Wadjuk Noongar land. The Noongar people continue to practice their values, beliefs, languages and knowledge and remain the spiritual and cultural custodians of this land, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Now, I've got some slides. Woo. I am absolutely delighted to return to present to you at this second ordinary meeting of Convocation. I've really enjoyed the close relationship that the Guild and Convocation have built this year, and I'm really appreciative of all the support and encouragement that the members of the Council have provided to me. And I'd like to especially thank the Warden, Warren, for his advice and unwavering support. I have absolutely adored my time as Guild President this year. It's been challenging, rewarding, and I hope very impactful for students. We've been working towards 3 key goals: strong representation, operational excellence, and value adding and engagement with students. I've included here some pictures of some of my highlights of this year, and it was really difficult to choose which ones I put up on the slide tonight. But in the top corner, I'll work my way along, you can see some pictures of us engaging with the National Union of Students in 2 Australia-wide protests against many of the changes proposed to higher education, like partial fee deregulation and cuts to the higher education participation program. These conversations will continue beyond the end of my term, and I anticipate the Guild will continue its advocacy to support students accessing higher education. Moving over, we've got me cutting a ribbon at the new Westpac branch in Guild Village. We've carried out many different capital projects, including the opening of this branch, which sets the scene for our future plans in the Guild Village in 2018 and the amenities that we would like to be able to provide for students. We've also relocated the second-hand bookshop and worked with the university on renovating a new cafe in the Reid Library, and we have many other projects underway for the rest of the year. Then we move on to the commencement ceremony. So the Guild has had fantastic exposure with students right from their orientation commencement ceremony to having 18,000 students come through the Guild Student Centre so far this year, and right down to engaging through clubs, volunteering and catering with students. We've had almost 500 events so far this year, thousands of students involved in clubs and volunteering, and we raised $50,000 for the charities through Prosh. Then you've got some pictures of me at a conference. So I've had the incredible opportunity of attending many conferences this year that have improved my knowledge of the higher education sector and understanding different student demographics and how best to represent them. So I've been to the National Union of Students President's Summit, Education Conference, Women's Conference, which is this one here, the Universities Australia Conference, and the Office of Learning and Teaching Symposium on Student Voice. I got to co-open the Guild's Club Collaborative Zone with Janet Holmes-Court AO, who is a former Guild Vice President. It's the leading facility of its type in Australia, and it provides a home to 138 clubs and societies, supporting them to give back and to enhance the culture of the campus. Then you've got me digging a hole to plant a tree, which was planted on Convocation Day in March to recognise the strong and important relationship between the Guild and Convocation. Then we'll jump over a bit because I put a fun picture of me jumping in there because I thought it was a fun picture. There's nothing really related to that picture, but then you've got a picture of me with the president of the WA Student Aboriginal Corporation, WASAC. We were gifted this beautiful painting by WASAC as part of Manda Week, which is their week that's focused on reconciliation. And it was painted by one of their very talented members. And this year we recognise WASAC as the peak representative body for Indigenous students at UWA. Then we have a picture of me with the student team for the Guild President versus the Vice-Chancellor's 11s cricket match. I'm proud to say that we were very gracious this year in letting the staff win. And then I've got a cute little picture of my executive team. And I'm going to jump through those because you've got them in your papers. One of my most proud things that we've achieved this year is a total renovation of the tavern, which is a very popular space for students to have events, drink a lot, and eat a lot of food, which is, the food is actually increasing and the drinking is decreasing, which is interesting and unexpected. But we've renovated the tavern, which is funded with the Student Services Amenities fee, and it involved entirely new walls and ceiling and fans and the wood feature coming through and new furniture and plants that I personally went to Bunnings and picked, and new audio-visual, new screens, totally new menu. And the feedback has been really positive from students, and it's very quickly becoming one of the most popular venues on the campus. There are many other initiatives that you have written in your report, and you can see that it's been a really big and busy year for the Guild. I'm really proud as well of the support that we've provided to the university and the projects that we've worked together in partnership on. Amongst many other fantastic opportunities that I've had this year, I've most enjoyed leading a dedicated and hardworking team of student and staff at the Guild. Some of them I think are here tonight, and I'd like to thank them for trying out new things, supporting me in some of the difficult decisions I've had to make, and always keeping the Guild fun and focused and fresh. Thank you very much, and I look forward to answering your questions during the panel.
Thank you very much, Maddie. It's been a delight to work with Maddie during her term as Guild President, and on behalf of Convocation Council, I wish to congratulate her on what she has achieved during the past 12 months. Thank you very much. Item 7 on our agenda this evening is the Warden's report. A full copy of my report is contained in the agenda booklet commencing on page 35. However, this evening I just wish to report on 5 issues that the Council of Convocation is currently considering. In my report, I provide the detail of the changes proposed by the Government to the UWA Act as part of the University's Legislation Amendment Bill introduced into State Parliament during May. As the Vice-Chancellor has announced, the current status of the parliamentary debate is ongoing, and it is about to go into the upper house. However, as this legislation is currently being debated in Parliament, I can only draw your attention to the detail in the report and give you an undertaking that will certainly inform all members of Convocation of the outcome once this is known. Given recent events in the political sphere, I am definitely not going to predict an outcome, so we'll just keep you informed of that one. However, one positive outcome I can report is the establishment of a Convocation workroom on the ground floor of the East Admin building. The room has been equipped with 2 of the workstations owned by Convocation and is available for use by members of Convocation Council and any member of Convocation who may need a place to work while between appointments on the UWA campus. The room is located next to the Orchid meeting room on the ground floor of the East Admin building and is clearly marked by signage containing the new Convocation logo, so please feel welcome to use this facility when you're on campus. At the first ordinary meeting, I reported that the university had conducted a review of the magazines that it produces, including the UniView magazine that is distributed to all graduates. We also farewelled Tria Wilshire, the editor of UniView, who had decided to retire from UWA. I'm now pleased to report that a new editor has been appointed, and Liz McGrath has completed her first edition of UniView, which you should have received last month. I think we have additional copies at the reception desk if you would like a copy as you leave this evening. We're all looking forward to working with Liz in her new role to improve the way in which the university communicates with its graduates. My written report also includes the list of those members of Convocation who have been recognised recently for their achievements in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. This list for the first time includes successful nominations prepared on behalf of Convocation Honours Committee, which is now resulting in an increasing number of nominations for UWA graduates thought worthy of recognition being sent through to the Honours Secretariat in Canberra. Given that the evaluation process conducted by the Honours Office in Canberra normally takes between 18 and 24 months, Convocation Council is hopeful that the increasing number of UWA graduates will continue to be included in future honours announcements. The only other item I wish to bring to your attention this evening is the annual Convocation elections. Preparation for these elections will commence next month, with nominations being called in November. If you would like to become more involved, please consider nominating for one of the 7 positions on Convocation Council that become vacant each year, or to become the next warden or deputy warden. As I'll be completing my term when the elections are held in March 2017, I would encourage everyone who has the interest to become actively involved in contributing to your university. I'm happy to take questions on these issues or any other issues covered in my report during the Q&A session at the end of the meeting. The next item of the second ordinary meeting, item 8, is the Convocation Officer's report, which is listed in the agenda booklet commencing at page 41. This report, as required by the UWA statutes, simply contains a list of graduates whose current whereabouts have become unknown since the last ordinary meeting in March. Those missing are listed by faculty and year of graduation to hopefully help you to check if there is anyone you may know. Please look at the list in the booklet, and if you do know the whereabouts of any of those included, please contact Juanita Perez, the Convocation Officer. She can obviously be contacted at the Office of Convocation or via email at convocation@uwa.edu.au. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 9, the Independent Audit Report. That report is provided for your information in the agenda booklet commencing at page 51. It has been considered and endorsed by Convocation Council on your behalf. The audit report is without any qualifications and demonstrates that Convocation is in a healthy financial state and able to pay our debts when they fall due. On your behalf, I'd like to commend the work of our Honorary Treasurer, Dr. Doug McGee, Convocation Councillor Con Abbott, and Convocation Officer Juanita Perez for their contribution to this excellent outcome. Item 10 relates to other business. As I have not received notice of any additional items for consideration at this meeting, I just wish to make 4 brief announcements. Well, 3 brief announcements and 1 significant announcement. The first relates to the significant announcement, and that is the award of a Convocation Medal, which is periodically awarded by Convocation Council to individuals who have distinguished themselves by their service to UWA. To present this evening's award, I'd now like to invite the Honorary Treasurer of Convocation, Dr. Doug McGee, to the stage. Please welcome Doug.
Thank you, Warren. Tonight's recipient of the Convocation Medal is a legend of the University Football Club, who has committed amazing service to the university and the many students and graduates he has coached, mentored and supported over the past 62 years. Neil Donaldson became involved in amateur football with the University Football Club in 1954 when he enrolled in chemistry at UWA. While studying, he was club secretary with the university, which was part of the Metropolitan Football Association from 1954 to 60, before being elected as the club's vice president. His UWA studies continued as Neil sought his ideal course, switching from chemistry to geology and maths, then to economics and economic history. However, his career called and he left UWA 1 third-year unit short of completion. That did not dampen his enthusiastic association with the University Football Club. He was elected University Club President in 1963 and coached the club's inaugural C-grade team. He held the presidential role until 1965. He coached the club's new D-grade team from 1964 to 1968. In 1968, nearly 50 years ago, Neil's 252 games and tireless efforts for university were acknowledged, and he was honoured with life membership of the University Football Club. That's 1968, that's a while ago. However, Donaldson's biggest legacy is a coach and mentor. From 1969 to 1971, and again from 1973 to 1974, and again in 1976, he coached University's A Colts. In 1972, he coached the club's A grade. He led university teams to 7 consecutive grand finals, winning premierships in 69, 70, 71, 74 and 76. In 1975, he took a year off from coaching and was A-grade selector and team manager. In 1956, going back a bit, Donaldson became the university delegate to the WA Amateur Football League. In 1971, he joined the inaugural WAFL Management Committee, a position he remained in until 1979. In both 1964 and 1967, Neil was the WAFL state team runner. In 1970, he was a state team selector and carnival director for the Australian Amateur Football Carnival in Perth. In 1971 and 72, he was the WAFL state team manager. He was state team selector in 71, 72 and 75, and chairman of selectors in 76 and 78. Not surprisingly, the Amateur Football League bestowed life membership on Neil in 1972. His efforts continued to be recognised, and he was awarded National Football Council Merit Award for services to amateur football in 1990. In 2000, Neil was awarded an Australian Sports Medal from the Australian Government, and in 2003 was awarded AFL recognition to volunteers of Australian football. In 2012, Donaldson was honoured with WA Football Commission Life Membership, and in 2014 he was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for his services to Australian rules football. The WA Amateur Football League thanked Neil for his efforts in 2014, celebrating his 60th year of involvement with WA Amateur Football by inducting him into the Hall of Champions as a champion. Throughout all of this time, he has been the heart and soul of the University Football Club, the Green Machine, probably the most successful AFL football club in Australia. His legendary status is well recorded in Jim Whelan's anecdotal history of the club, referred to as a drinking club with a football problem. Neil has probably contributed more than anyone to solving that problem. He has never been absent and continues today encouraging, guiding and supporting his beloved UFC. Neil Donaldson is a deserved recipient of a Convocation medal. Neil, please come up on stage to receive the 2016 Convocation medal.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Listening to all that, I feel quite exhausted that I've been involved in those sort of things. But I am very honoured by it, but also embarrassed that I should be singled out to be doing all these things for football in Western Australia and the University Club in particular, because there have been so many people who've helped me along the way and be so involved in actually making the University Football Club the kings of amateur football in Western Australia. And in fact, last year when we won our 88th premiership, we became the most successful football club ever in Australia, both professionally and amateur levels. I think this university can be very proud of all the things that it has helped and the role it's played in helping the University Football Club right through its history. I think the greatest thing we ever did was get this Green Machine printed, this 560 pages of stories not only of the present students, but what they did and what they've achieved when they graduated. We set a pattern because it's so well received that Jim Wheeland then was asked to produce the same sort of book, A History of the Athletic Club, which is another magnificent volume, and I know now that he is working on a book for the rowing club, the history of it within the university. So I think the University Football Club has set a standard, and I only hope that, from listening to the Vice-Chancellor just a moment ago, that I hope that we're not going to become computerised and have everybody doing everything online. I do hope we get together and actually play the game. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Doug, and congratulations, Neil. I now have only 3 other items of general business which I wish to bring to your attention. The first is the annual 50th reunion organised by Convocation this year. As indicated in the slide, this year the reunion is for graduates of 1966 and it will be held in the old ref in the Hackett Hall on Saturday the 8th of October. All graduates of 1966 and those who are at UWA at this time are invited to attend. In past years, many of the staff members who are teaching at the university during this period have also attended. Several tours prior to the luncheon have been arranged with representatives of the Friends of the Grounds, the Friends of Lawrence Wilson Gallery and the Historical Society are all available and are undertaking tours for that occasion. Guests also will have the opportunity to visit the wonderfully newly renovated ground floor of the Reed Library. If you are interested in attending, please contact Convocation Councillor Pauline Tremlett in the front row, who is be delighted to provide you with further details. On behalf of Convocation Council, I wish to thank both Pauline Tremlett and Dr. Joan Pope for all their efforts in again forming the committee for this year's 50th reunion celebrations. The second item is to solicit your assistance in deciding how funds donated by UWA graduates should be spent. Each year, some of the funds donated by graduates are allocated to Alumni Fund grants. These are distributed to projects submitted by students and staff following assessment by a committee which includes Convocation representatives. As you will guess, there are always many more projects submitted than the funding available. This year, for the first time, we're asking you to assist in the selection of which projects should be funded via the People's Choice Award. Next week, you will receive an email referring you to the People's Choice Award website so that you can cast your vote for the project you believe should be funded. I've found these projects submitted to be of great interest, and I would encourage you to cast your vote when you receive that email. Many of you would also be aware that Terry Larder, an honorary member of Convocation, conducts tours of the hidden and secret aspects of the UWA campus. So if you'd like to take in the view from the top of the Winthrop Tower or seek out and explore the hidden air raid shelters that lie under the campus, a special tour for members of Convocation has been arranged for 1:30 p.m. tomorrow, starting from the Visitors Centre. Terry does these every third Saturday, I understand, so if you can't attend the one tomorrow, then feel free to get further details and attend those. All the details of that are again in the UniView magazine.